4-0.
Okay, we'll see everybody afterwards.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. We're coming back into open session. In closed session, the board considers student discipline matter 2022.05 and 2022.06. The board voted 4-0 to approve a stipulated expulsion agreement for this matter. In closed session, the board considered a settlement agreement in the Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2022-070476, and the vote was also 4-0. The board has approved a settlement agreement in the Office of Administrative Hearing under case number 2022-070476. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 5.1, approval of the consent agenda. I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda items 5.2 to 5.4, please.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to 6.1, SRTA.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Heather Varela, the SRTA president. I don't have much to report, but I just wanted to share that we support Measure R. We've donated to the campaign, and we look forward to helping, getting a committee together to help hang the flyers that weekend in October. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. CSEA.
Yes, Juana sent her report to me.
Okay.
She said, "Good evening, everyone. CSEA and District Negotiations Committee met earlier today. We had a very productive meeting. CSEA is looking forward to our next meeting to continue and hopefully finish with negotiations. Thank you. Juana Casillas, Chapter President."
Okay, great. Thank you, Juana. And excited today, we have 6.3 School Spotlight, John Gutierrez Middle School.
You know, there's an animal in the building. I'm kind of concerned
I know.
here. Domesticated.
An animal.
Domesticated.
Good evening, esteemed board members, superintendent, aldermen, cabinet members, and audience. My name is Ethan Sandoval, the 7th grade ASB representative.
Hello everyone, my name is Rosa Duarte and I'm the 6th grade representative. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We are so excited to share all the amazing things we are doing at John Gutierrez Middle School. We would like to start. First, we would like to introduce our ASB. Our class has 28 students. All officers were selected in a school-wide vote, and we have one incredible ASB director, Miss Orr.
We have done many amazing things so far this year. Our first trip of the year was to the beach. There we got to eat yummy food, play in the water, and make incredible memories with our staff. It is a day we will never forget.
One of our newest campus traditions is the Bobcat Bash. Families came to our campus to play games and eat food from local vendors. We even had our very own Miss Casapia play a live performance with her band. It was amazing. We hope you can all join us for our next Bobcat Bash.
This past week, our students and staff have participated in our very first Spirit Week. Days included Pajama Day, White Lie Day, 90s and 2000s Day, and my personal favorite, Anything But a Backpack Day. I brought a barbecue pit to school. We had a great time showing off our school spirit.
So far, we have had 2 student versus teacher events, dodgeball and most recently volleyball. The students came out victorious in both events, but good job teachers for trying. You did your best.
We also run lunchtime activities such as challenges, dances, and our own mascot, Buster K, even stops by to participate and join in on the school spirit. We even give out prizes.
Our year has just begun. We have many things we are looking forward to in the upcoming months.
As a group, we will be headed to the CATA conference where we will learn more about ASB at our school.
We are also looking forward to the bowling trip and our first school dance on Friday.
We hope to host a talent show this year.
Does anyone have any questions about the awesome things happening at JGMS?
Would like to go first?
I would.
What was the craziest thing that somebody took for everything but the backpack?
Probably a car bumper.
Oh, wow. And did any teachers get hurt while you were playing against them?
No.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for coming out here and informing us of what's going on at JG, and especially the Bobcat here and our ASB leaders here. I and all the staff. It's one of our anchor schools, and I'm just glad to see that things are getting back. I remember 3-4 years ago, it was always a school of excitement and a lot of activities going on, the beach trip, and so just keep it up. You guys, the way you make a great school is making sure people get involved, and the fact that you guys are participating, teachers and staff, playing volleyball and dodgeball. God, I wish I had a video of that. Good God. Having said that, thank you, and keep it up. This is where our true leaders learn. This is where our true leaders grow. So our future is looking bright. Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership and the PowerPoint and having you all stand up there, very courageous. And I'm really excited about the new year for you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you guys both did an awesome job. It takes a lot to kind of stand up there and speak. Are your parents here? I don't know your parents. You want to introduce your mom?
She's right there.
Well, thank you, Mom, for raising an awesome leader there. So thank you very much. And would you like to introduce your parent?
He's sitting right there. Gisano.
Nice.
No. Thank you both, and thank you for the parents and the staff. It's exciting what's happening there, and just keep it up, and just keep going. Awesome year.
And
Oh, did your Bobcat one?
I was going to say, who is the Mr. Bobcat, I guess, isn't going to give us anything, or just your presence.
Yeah, we can take a picture. Yeah.
I know.
Do maybe in front of the screen and switch it to one of the other slides, like go to like one of the activities. Yeah. On the other, whichever one you pick.
Yeah.
Get in there. You're gonna get in there. You're little. Get in there. There you go.
Bobcats.
All right. Oh, I think they have one.
I wonder what that is.
Your son.
Thank,
Me too.
thank you. Go Bobcats.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Board President, this is one of the few joys in life I have left, is seeing our school come and present. So keep them coming.
Hi, good job. Good job. Oh, nice meeting you. Good job.
Shake them with that.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, go Bobcat.
He or she, I
Buster
don't
K.
know. Buster K.
Buster K. That's a ferocious Bobcat. That's all I got to see.
That's cute. That is absolutely.
Okay, we're going to move on to 6.4, Superintendent's Cabinet. We're going to start off with Director of MOTF, Mr. Victor Sandoval.
Well, good evening, everybody. Reverberation here, but anyways, can you all hear me now? Okay, perfect. Well, good evening, everybody. I don't have very much to report tonight, other than we had a very productive meeting with our facilities committee. In addition, I'm really feeling well, and I'm glad to be back. Other than that, I will be discussing a couple of items later on tonight. And that's all I've got for you today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome back, Victor. Does the board have any questions or comments?
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to Director of Nutritional Services, Mr. Chuck Helm.
Good evening, everyone. So yesterday I attended a food and nutrition workshop through ASBO, and yeah, good. But yesterday I attended a food and nutrition workshop through ASBO, and the workshop focused on things like meal patterns, financial management, menu planning, and other nutrition services specific items. It's a really good refresher. A lot of stuff, from when I first started, but great to have the refresher, and I'm very glad to have the PD opportunity. So speaking of PD, I had a meeting with our food service leads yesterday, and while we discussed other things going on in our department, FIG training that was recently approved, and I'm excited to bring this training to our staff. Today, I actually confirmed with Becky Swan with FIG that we'll be having a demonstration. She called it a live demonstration, but it's going to be virtual, so I'm not sure how that works. But it'll be for our staff. All of our staff will be there in the boardroom, and it's going to be based on how the app works and how they can get the most out of the training that FIG provides.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Just a quick one. How's the supply chain situation? Is it easing up a little bit now? Is it getting back to normal? Are we halfway there? How's it going?
No, we have good days and bad days, right? So we had a couple items not show up last week, but they were able to get it to us on Friday. So sometimes it's less of them not having it and more of them, getting it later, or not having enough of it, maybe sending us portions of it and so forth. But it has gotten better. I would say we're halfway there, but it's a huge improvement from the last 2 years for sure.
So I'll just save my time for that. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Director of Special Education and Student Services, Ms. Melanie Grundy.
Perfect. I'm excited to report that we had our first in-person district-wide all SPED meeting last week, and it was wonderful. I almost forgot how to present in person. So we got together and really just dug into IEP goal writing, had them broken up into teams working with job alike. So RSP working with RSP, SDC teachers working collaboratively, and really just focused on how to create a SMART goal, how to develop IEPs, and then how to progress monitor those. So how do we input benchmarks into our CYRUS IEP program? So it was just really nice to have everyone back in person, got a lot of positive feedback. And actually in October, we're planning breakouts. So we'll just get together in job alikes on certain days and really just bringing in data, looking at iReady scores and talking about different curriculum programs we're using within each setting. So excited about that. Did a safety care training last week. Really grateful to the other 3 trainers that we have. They've just taken such a leadership role in that. They trained the last set of our teachers as well as paraprofessionals and even a couple gen ed teachers that were very interested or had students where they needed that training and support. And then with collaboration from Victor, we can successfully say that tomorrow and Friday we'll be training our transportation team in safety care as well. So we'll be doing like a midday so that they can do that between transportation, taking our kids to school and back. We also just today, I held an attendance training. So we did an A2A training, really focused on supporting our clerks as well as our secretaries. Most administrators attended as well, and was really looking at the conferences part of our attendance process and what our outreach to families has been and collaboration, and then how to hold those meetings and close them in the system, which would then trigger letters and that we'd go through the process. So really collaborative. The trainer actually didn't even make it to her PowerPoint. Everyone was asking so many great questions and just talking about how to better engage our families in attendance. So, working, Summer just reminded me, big this week, we're working on our safety plans. So we've been working on them. It's an ongoing work in progress, but we will be bringing those to the next board meeting because they are due to the county a little bit later in October. So really excited to be bringing those forward. We have our SIA system that reviews them, looking at those right now, and then they'll provide feedback, and then we'll be bringing them to you for approval. So thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, I had a couple questions. You mentioned the Java links. Can you tell me what that is?
Are you Java likes?
Yeah, Java likes. Sorry.
So Java like is like when you get RSP teachers together and they kind of district wide come together and collaborate on what they're doing at the individual school sites, bringing OTs together so that they're talking and communicating and collaborating. Our special day teachers are able to come together. So we'll get together as an all sped, but really breaking out so that they can work and align some of the processes district wide.
So that's what the name of the process is
called? I call them Java like.
Okay.
Just kind of how we group them. Sometimes we'll purposely kind of put RSP and SDC.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And then I know you had mentioned as far as safety training with students that are getting dropped off or picked up for school. Does that happen in the vans or in buses or?
That's a great question. So we're really going to focus a lot of safety care is the proactive things we can do for students that may be escalating or having behaviors. So a big focus of what we're going to be doing with our transportation team is going to be giving them those tools to how to respond if a student says this or what to do. So we won't be getting them officially certified. It's going to be them going through the 2-day. That's all going to be about how to prevent or de-escalate student behavior.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I just appreciate that because it kind of lays the foundation for that. And I do appreciate as far as the meeting up, because I think the more foundation we have, the better we can serve our students, especially with the IEPs and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Questions or comments from the board? No? Okay, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, Director of Parent, Family, and Community Engagement, Dr. Summer Prather-Smith.
Good evening, everybody. I included a link in our Friday letter, but I'll pass out a printed copy, and then if anybody else needs it, I brought it just in case. So we had our first Equity and Inclusion Coalition meeting for this year, remembering that we combined our Behavior Task Force and our Equity and Inclusion into one meeting. And this just kind of lays out the foundation of what we discussed in our meeting. I'm not going to go through all of it, of course, but I really wanted to focus on the ideas that this is a comprehensive look at equity and inclusion in our district, focused around teachers, students, looking at our hiring process within HR, establishing processes and procedures, looking at our restorative practices. And what's really great about the coalition is it's bringing together both our community partners as well as our partner districts. So a big collaborator in the coalition is Salinas Union High School District. So their JEDI team, their Justice, Inclusion, Diversity, they got the JEDI title, but the JEDI team was there as well. And then I was able to meet with them after to really plan out how we can collaborate together this year, as we have very similar initiatives. We're both working with Dominique Smith in the Restorative Practice Playbook. They have full-time restorative practice facilitators at their site. And as you know, we have stipended positions. So we were able, after this Equity and Inclusion Coalition, to find ways where we can bring our leads together with their facilitators so that we're simultaneously learning together. So we'll be meeting with them once a month in a roundtable with our leads as well. And then we were able to plan together for some of the professional development that are going to happen simultaneously. So like I shared with you, we're both working with Dr. Dominique Smith. So a few of their staff are going to attend our October 10th in-person PD day. They've already had an in-person professional development as well. Staff who missed it or who maybe weren't able to attend for whatever reason or want to attend again, we've opened 20 slots for them to join us on October 20th at our middle school presentation. It'll also give an opportunity for our middle school team to collaborate with that high school team, which I think is really important for that process. And then Dr. Smith will be coming here, no relation, no Dr. Smith relation, but Dr. Smith will be coming here on November 28th and 29th. The 28th, he'll be in the Salinas Union High School District doing their site visits, and our team will be part of that. On the 29th, he'll come here and the Salinas Union High School team will be part of that so that we can debrief together afterwards in that process. So I'm excited about that. And then in February, I can't remember the dates right after that. In February, we'll be going to San Diego to see Dominique's school. So he is an active principal in a school, Fisher and Fry, who are very well known. He runs their charter school. So he's an active principal doing the work that he's teaching, which is really important to me, that it's not somebody sitting out there not doing that work. So we'll be taking our restorative practice leads as well as a few other folks to San Diego to do a site visit there. And we're going to partner that with Salinas Union High School District. So their JEDI team and our team will travel together down there, have that opportunity together, and then again, have opportunities to debrief and collaborate. So that's the Equity and Inclusion Coalition. Lots of great work happening there as well. We have our first DLAC meeting on October 5th, and we're going to be asking for parents who are interested in attending CAVE this year. It's going to be in Long Beach. So we'd like to take one representative from each school site, either a DLAC or an ELAC member with us there. So we're working on that. Part of what we talked about is the connection to our Equity and Inclusion Coalition. I'm working with the Children's Book Project out of San Francisco to get some diversity materials into our classrooms. The Children's Book Project gives free books to classroom teachers, huge amounts of brand new books, not used books, to classroom teachers. So I'm working to coordinate with them to be able to pick up some of those titles and get them into our classrooms as well. And then last but not least, we're excited that in addition to our certificated professional development on October 10th, we'll also be offering PD for our classified staff, a paid PD opportunity that day. Our staff will be working with, they get to go to the Kid Power Workshop, so learning about how to support students, really focused around our yard supervisors, our office staff, our health aides. They'll do CPR in the morning and then working on cognito suicide prevention in the afternoon. And then all of our front office staff, including our office staff here, will be doing creating optimism in the workplace, full day training around that topic as well. So we're excited to offer that opportunity to them. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
Wow. That was a lot. Thank you very much for all your work. I randomly had an opportunity to talk to a gentleman, and his name just slipped my mind, but apparently he's the Equity and Inclusion Manager for Monterey Bay Aquarium. And he said they've had that program for 10 years. And I mentioned that, we're getting started and might be a great partner. I'm not sure how we can partner, but I know you're great at making those connections.
And we've turned to a lot. We were talking about that with Salinas Union High. Private industry's had it for a long time. It's part of a huge part of the HR process as well. And we've been kind of taking some of those pieces to make sure that we're incorporating that as well. And so that's somebody else I could reach out to. But
yeah, and he told me he's a new president of NAMSI. So I just thought that was great and great work. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I got the card. You have it. Yeah. But anyways, I appreciate all your work, and I'm excited at the direction the district is going. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I don't know what to say. I'm just so grateful that we have this program. We have a vertical integration with the high schools. I know a couple of Jedis, if you will, Miss Smith, and but this idea of equity and race-based justice, as I'd like to call it, it's been a missing element, and I've personally seen an increase in intolerance and discrimination in the last 2-3 years. especially in the school setting, the students, and it's our job as educators to provide that help, that support to guide them into a better direction. And it has to be comprehensive, and it can't just end at one school level. So I'm glad we're partnering with the high school. So thank you for everything, and and everything you're doing with our students as well as the future students that I will be incurring in a few years. Thank you.
There was a grant. I'm glad it kind of reminded me. I'm gonna tell you because if I don't forget, it's called Outride Grant for specialized bikes. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that before. Outride Grant for special bikes. The only reason I heard it is one of my friends got contract here to build bikes to the school districts. I guess they're getting like 35 or 40 bikes.
It's probably the one I did
Oh,
last
okay.
year. It might be a similar. I took a whole kids last year a few times. So
Possibly.
maybe out of the cycle, but I can
Okay.
reach out to her and see if it's connected.
Okay, yeah,
That's
that's
one we
what.
went to Pebble Beach.
Yeah, I remember that one. I wasn't sure if that was that one, but I said, you know what, I just better bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's called Outride Grant for specialized bikes. Yeah, he was showing me that Al Sal, I guess, got a grant, and so did Gonzalez. Both got. Okay, well, thank you for the update. Okay, moving on to Assistant Superintendent of Human Resource, Ms. Becky Moore.
Thank you. Last week, we had a webinar with Ben Elevate, and that's the company that we contracted with this year to provide some support for public service loan forgiveness. It was very well attended. I believe there were over 60 participants.
Oh, wow.
So there will be more follow-up with that and support for our teachers and staff who have student loans. This is the week that I'm finalizing our assignment monitoring for credentials and assignments for the 21-22 school year. So I'm just about done submitting all of that to MCOE, and we'll find out how we did. I know there are going to be a few misassignments, things that have changed since last year, and also just a couple of things that got missed. So we're working right now also to very carefully fine-toothed comb, look through the current master schedules, and just make sure everything is set up correctly before Census Day next Wednesday. That's the date that is used for this data. I'm working with Rosa and Donna on reviewing all of our position control, making sure that our positions are assigned to the right budget, the right schools, all of the details that go along with that. I attended a McSig board meeting yesterday, and we did learn that there will be a 7.5% increase on all plans except for the PPO Select. And so that information, that was just approved yesterday. And so we'll be getting information soon for open enrollment with what that's actually going to look like. And finally, today, as Juana shared, we had negotiations, and we are pretty confident we'll be able to wrap that up at our next meeting next week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
First of all, thank you for your presentation. The medical aspect of it, is a huge chunk of our budget, and I know we've been with McSig for many years, and but I would like to explore, other options that are available. If we can get comparable or even better coverage, with an alternate provider, that's something I would like to maybe see in a future board meetings. That's always a major concern for me. It's always been making sure that our staff have the best medical, but at the same time, make sure it's cost effective. And we can raise their pay on one end, but if the medical's going up too, it negates it, And so
We did meet with CVT.
Yeah.
CSEA initiated the request for that. So we met with CVT and also CalPERS. CSEA ruled CalPERS out and had presentations at one of their chapter meetings, invited all of us as well with management because we're also interested in exploring that to hear from both providers, CVT and McSig. The CSEA chapter is voting tomorrow on which provider to move forward with. Heather had reached out to me on behalf of SRTA and was going to host the same presentations. I also shared with them the information from CalPERS. And then their unit took a vote and decided not to pursue that exploration process and just to stay with mixed sig.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the update. Anything else from the board? Okay. Okay, moving on to the board and the superintendent. If we can start off with Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to join in on a presentation from Ms. Giggling and Ms. Casapia for their music program and all their exciting plans for this year. And they shared some of their fundraising goals. I think they're going to do a trip out to Great America area where they perform at a local school. Then they go to Great America, and then the awards happen there. And I think their goal was like $15,000. They're talking about different kinds of fundraisers. I think a mattress sale was one. I think maybe a taco one. So I think the next meeting is tomorrow, Thursday. But a lot of exciting things. It's so they shared a story with me. I couldn't believe. I don't know if you guys know it, but apparently Miss Casapia was in Korea when she was in kindergarten, and Miss Galing was her teacher in Korea when she was a kindergartner. And I'm like,
Miss Casapia has the class photo
yes,
where she was little, and Diane Galing is her teacher.
Wow. Yeah, so she knows she was meant to be at the Santa Rita School District, Ms. Casapia said. So it was very informative, and I'm glad the schools are collaborating this year for that. I also had the opportunity to attend several soccer games for John G. And it's great to see both the VP and the principal out there and, you know, dual roles, enjoying the game, but at the same time monitoring the situation. So I know La Jolla is doing excellent. I hear elections are coming up for their student representatives. So just a lot of good things happening. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Neil Patel.
You know, same thing with the JG. I've just been so astonished by the change I've seen over there. You know, the leadership over there, the staff. You know, it finally seems to be coming together. I think losing John was a major drama for all of us. You know, it hurt, but you cannot replace him. But you know, we can do better. And I'm so glad that I finally feel like we have really good leadership there, and the staff is coalescing around that as well as the parents. So I just want to thank everyone involved with that. Also, you know, I've been talking to some PTA parents and the president of PTA of Santa Rita and also, you know, other elementary sites. I had one recommendation, and that is outdoor shading, you know, at lunchtime and at breaks, you know. I know at New Republic, for example, you know, when they're out there eating lunch, there's very little shading. And with climate change and increased temperatures that we've had, I don't think temperatures are going down anytime soon. So I would just like for us to possibly explore, you know, inexpensive, you know, I know at our high school we put up this wind shading. I'm not sure what you would call it. It's pretty inexpensive, you know, sales. I think what's the term? You know what the term is? But just so when they're out there doing breaks or lunch, they have some shading to protect them from the UV rays and the heat, you know. So something to explore, you know. I just feel like, you know, I look for shade when it's hot outside. So I'm sure these kids, and, you know, they're rambunctious and they run a lot and stuff. But I think we should be able to provide them with some amount of shade, shaded areas, you know, during recess time, especially lunchtime, in the elementary schools. Thank you.
So what you mentioned was like permanent structures that they had installed that you mentioned?
Yeah, at our school and most of the high schools, they put up, it's like a vinyl, you know, sheeting.
Like the firefighter hose type, like that.
Yeah, it's a mesh, you know, and it's not completely shaded, but it does provide, you know, some amount of protection from the UV rays and the heat. And so just something to explore, you know. I you know, with the recent temperature, you know, Jesus, we had that you know, heat spell for a while, and I just feel like, you know, it's just going to increase in the future, and you know, overall safety and, you know, concern, you know, and some parents have brought that up to me as a concern, so I thought I'd share that with you guys today.
Yeah, and I think that's part of our facilities plan, right? For New Republic, I think, because I think that's been
Perfect.
something. Yeah, McKinnon too, right?
Is
Was
there-
it's in the facilities plan. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we can, you know, get that, you know, expedited, or at least let the parents know that, you know, it is being developed, you know. Thank you.
No, thank you for bringing that up, Miss Avlariano.
Hi. I don't have anything to report out because I didn't go to any meetings, but I do want to let all the board, I mean, not the board, the directors, that they're doing a great job leadership-wise and team-wise. I see a lot of all of you working in teams, team players. So I just want to commend you for that. And I just think we're going to have a great year. It was hard last year. And I'm also, with everything going on, bringing summer on board since last year. I mean, everybody's doing a terrific job, but I know that summer, that piece that was missing was all the parents getting the parents together and stuff. And her role is a really important role, just like everybody else's. So, but I'm really happy to know that we're now connecting more with parents. So, thank you.
Okay, I was able to attend the John Gutierrez Bash, so that was pretty awesome. A lot of people. That was me on the picture. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's me on the picture. No, it was really nice to see that a lot of the families and staff and the kids kind of enjoying themselves, and they're selling water, and it just kind of creating that school cohesiveness is always super important. People to have pride in their schools and stuff. So and then I was briefly able to kind of chime into the LCAP meeting really briefly. And it's amazing kind of where we've gone in our district now, where we have the Spanish and English translation. We're very grateful to have Albert, who does an awesome job at that translation portion of it, and clear, and kind of, I think, because that's a big portion of our population families are major Spanish speaking. So, and now we go to Superintendent Ellerman.
I think our most important thing, we had our facilities committee meeting last night, and I wanted to get board direction. The facilities committee would like to submit a letter to the California Attorney General's office, encouraging him to give clear guidance allowing for piggyback on facilities for modular buildings. There's been some speculation that will be disallowed or disallowed in some way for projects that receive state funding. And we just want to, as the facilities committee, let the Attorney General know how that impacts our school district. And if the board is interested in being included in that, or a separate letter also to the Attorney General's office.
The board want to?
I'm wholeheartedly in support of that. The fact that the state can't get their act together and find us funding, where we can barely scrape by and not provide the services that they mandate, and then to create artificial guidance that does not, efficiently help us spend the money that we need to expend in order to make sure we have enough classrooms, enough facilities. I think it's ludicrous. I really do. And so I totally support us writing that letter and asking for that clarification. But at the same time, I also recommend why we feel this way about the situation. I think guidance towards him, or guidance toward the office from our district would also help, besides asking for clarification.
Yeah, so I would say proceed forward, please. Okay, any other questions from the board? No? Okay, moving on to 7.1, public comment regarding non-agenda items.
No, we do not.
Okay, anybody in the public? No. Any public comments regarding agenda items?
Yes.
Okay.
This is regarding 8.1. Dear ladies and gentlemen of the board, sorry to bother you, but when looking over the Safe Routes to School plan, I noticed a glaring omission of an area within our district that I at least feel needs to be addressed. I'm referring to the way students get from Penzance Street to Russell Road. As of right now, our families that walk that route have no sidewalk to walk along to get from Penzance to the crosswalk at San Juan Grade and Russell Road. Right now, they have to walk on I think it's stooping dirt path, or else jaywalk across San Juan Grade Road and walk through a neighborhood that again has no sidewalk and that has many cars speed through it as a shortcut. Now, I am not sure if it is possible to add this add to this plan at this stage. If it isn't, I implore you to keep it in mind if there will be a second part to this plan. Thank you so much for your time, Danny Crouch.
Okay. Is there any other public comments?
No, that is all.
Okay. Okay, moving on to 8.1, safe routes to school plan presentation. Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that working? And I think I have a presentation that you guys will be bringing up. Is that right?
No. Okay. Yeah, give us 1 second. They're going to pull it up right now.
Sure. So I can address the public comment while we're waiting.
Sure. Okay. You want to? Yeah.
The goal, thank you so much. The goal of my presentation tonight is to get exactly those types of comments. So I'm here to present the draft plan. I'm looking for feedback from board members and members of the public. The plan is live on our project website for a month and available for public comments. So that's the purpose of my presentation tonight, is to share the draft Safe Routes to Schools plan and hear any comments that you have while we're at this draft plan stage. So comment noted. Thank you.
And while they're waiting for that, do you work on behalf of a government agency or?
So my name is
Okay.
Amelia Conlin. I'm a planner with Ecology Action, and the draft Safe Routes to Schools plan is a partnership between the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, the City of Salinas, the Monterey County Health Department, the 4 school districts, and Ecology Action. So it's really a partnership, and Ecology Action also works on the Bike Smart and Walk Smart programs. So we provide bike safety education for students as well.
While we're waiting, are sidewalks, like, I know the county's different, but is sidewalks generally something a city's supposed to provide? Because that stretch, that corner, I visited that house before, and you know, it's very dangerous, and they don't have any sidewalks or along San Juan Gray Road, but the rest of the city does. I haven't found another place within the city that doesn't.
I think that's county though.
No, it's a city.
It's city.
It's a city. It's the corner. But anyway, yeah.
It's once again, I want to comment on that as well. It's just really bad planning on behalf of the city of Salinas. You know, from numbers of years, almost a decade or two, from East Salinas to get to Natividad Hospital, there was no sidewalk. Year after year, I'd go into this board over there, the city council, and complain. Finally, because of a partnership with the county, they finally have that sidewalk from East Salinas. I mean, how dare they allow people, indigent people especially, to be able to walk to a hospital without a sidewalk on a road that's going 45 miles an hour. And here we have a similar situation. We have students who are having to cross a major street, which is San Juan Grade, you know, with cars going 40, 45, 50 miles an hour without a sidewalk. You know, and once again, you know, the city likes to dictate terms to everybody else, but when it comes to providing safety, you know, they fail in many instances. So that is a major concern. And the other issue is the Einsteins City approved a high school that feeds in to a major thoroughfare that was already congested, with 2 high schools already there. And what is directly result of the city approving that plan of having Rancho San Juan? Now you have speeders going through Penance, going 35, 45 miles an hour, creating absolute hell for those residents. And I hear from them. You know, Bolsa Knolls area is complaining left and right of traffic. You know, they need traffic calming measures there as well. So to be honest with you, you know, this is just one of many concerns, you know, but that specific area that you're talking about, Penance into San Juan, into Russell, you know, that's not an issue of a recent, you know, that's just a nightmare waiting to happen. So I'm very concerned about this issue, especially with the speeding, the traffic on Penance, students walking. I see them all the time, having to walk down that side of that hill, that dirt patch, and in rain, good God, man. You know, the idea that they're going to slip down that little hill, just to get to the traffic corner and cross that street is absolutely insane. So I'm glad you're here to hear our concerns, but it's been years in the making, and somebody needs to take responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. They got your presentation? Okay, cool. All right.
Great. So again, my name is Amelia Conlin, here to present to you on the draft City of Salinas Safe Routes to Schools plan. And the purpose of my presentation is to share information on the draft plan and collect any comments that you have right now, and announce the fact that the plan is available to the public for the next month, and we would love to hear any comments that folks have. So I'll share a little overview of what I'll be talking about tonight. I'll give a brief overview of the plan and the timeline that we used to create it. I will talk about the vision and goals that were developed for the plan, the public outreach process, an overview of the recommendations. There's too many recommendations to go into them all tonight, but I'll do my best. Talk about the process of project evaluation, and then plan implementation, and then open to any comments that you may have. So the Safe Routes to Schools plan includes recommendations that are meant to improve safety for students who are walking and biking and driving to 45 schools in Salinas. This has been a 3-year process to develop the plan. We started at the beginning of 2020 and expect to be wrapped up by the end of this year. The plan is funded through a grant from the state of California, from Caltrans, as well as local Measure X funding through the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. And the plan is a partnership between the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, the City of Salinas, Ecology Action, the Monterey County Health Department, and the 4 school districts. And the county was also involved to review all of the recommendations for county roadways and sign off on those. So here is the process that we used to develop the plan. Our plans changed significantly due to COVID, as I'm sure all of yours did as well. And so we ended up launching our outreach in fall of 2020. We worked with your principals to send out a parent survey asking about any barriers to walking or biking or any safety concerns that parents had, and also requested time on the agendas of parent meetings to give a brief presentation about the project and ask school staff and parents those same questions. Are there particular safety issues around schools that you would like to see addressed? Do you have any ideas for projects that you would like to see included in this plan? We followed that up with audits at each of the school site, also in fall 2020. This was not our typical process. Usually we would observe the traffic during morning drop-off or afternoon pickup and look for any safety issues around school sites. And instead, we invited school staff and city staff to join us for a conversation and really asked school staff what the typical traffic safety issues were around each school site. And we found that principals and liaisons, and sometimes we were able to talk to the crossing guards, are very familiar with the typical traffic issues around each school site. So we did feel like we got good information through that process, and that included a walk around the neighborhood and an inventory of the infrastructure around school sites and the deficiencies. And so all of that information went into developing a draft recommendations list over the winter of 2020. And in spring of 2021, we went back to principals. We asked for more time on parent meeting agendas and presented the draft recommendations and asked, really, is there anything missing here? Or are there recommendations that are not a good fit for your school site? The recommendations were also sent out through a parent survey, so parents had the opportunity to check those out and make comments. And we also installed a few of the recommendations on a temporary basis for a month. These were our temporary installation projects, and this was a way to get more feedback from community members on a couple of the bigger projects on whether they would like to see these be made permanent. And I'll talk a little bit more about the McKinnon Street installation. And then all of that information was wrapped up into the draft plan that's now live on our project website. And we expect to be back before you at the end of this year or in early 2023 to present the final plan and ask for board adoption. So here is the vision and the goals that were developed as part of this planning process. And our vision for implementation of this plan is that all students and families in Salinas can walk, bike, scooter, or skateboard to school safely. We want to see students having the skills and confidence that they need to get to school safely without using a car. We want students and families to be aware of the benefits of walking and biking to school, including health benefits, environmental benefits, and saving money on your daily commute costs. And then being more connected to their neighborhood and community and to each other through their trip to school. And the plan goals fall into these 5 categories. So we have goals around encouraging the majority of students to walk, bike, scooter, skateboard, take the bus, or carpool to school in the future through implementation of the projects in this plan. We have goals around eliminating severe injury or fatality collisions for anyone who is walking or biking in Salinas, and that's in line with the city's Vision Zero goals. We have a goal that all students in Salinas will receive traffic safety education, so know how to walk and bike safely. We have a goal of continued engagement with the community as the transportation agency for Monterey County and the city implements the programs and projects in this plan. And then we have goals around equity to make sure that all community members citywide have access to education and safe routes to school. So here is a summary of the outreach that was done focused around your school district. We estimate that more than 3,000 parents were reached through Parent Square or social media messages that were sent out through the principals. We received 358 responses to an online parent survey. We conducted 11 presentations at virtual parent meetings to ask for input and share the draft recommendations, and then held the 2 demonstration projects, which were a little farther from Santa Rita district schools, but did touch on McKinnon Elementary. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that project. We, over the course of a month, installed temporary protected bike lanes on McKinnon Street between Hardin Parkway and Hardin Middle School. And the goal here, we heard a lot about parents parking in the bike lane while they're dropping off or picking up students. And that leads to students biking on the sidewalk, which creates less safe conditions for students who are biking and students who are walking. And so the project here included barriers between the bike lane and the travel lane to provide some protected space for students on bikes. This included painted planters that were painted by the North Salinas High students, which came out really great. And we collected more survey responses during this project. We received 250 survey responses, and the majority of respondents wanted to see these changes be made permanent. And so the city took that feedback. There was a round of bike and pedestrian grant funding available this year, and they turned this project into a grant application that also includes improvements on Hardin Parkway. So looking at a multi-use path on Hardin Parkway and other bike and pedestrian safety improvements. So this is a little ways away from McKinnon Elementary, but if that grant application is successful, you will be seeing some bike and pedestrian improvements on McKinnon Street and on Hardin Parkway over the next few years. So, an overview of the recommendations in the plan. So the recommendations fall into a couple of different categories. We have citywide recommendations for bike facilities and class 1 paths that students can also use to walk. We have safe routes to schools corridor recommendations, and then we have the individual school recommendations. And so here on the citywide recommendations, a few things to note for Santa Rita are that we are recommending bike facilities and complete sidewalks on San Juan Grade Road. That's a very obvious need, as well as on Russell Road. We heard a lot about challenges with safety on Russell Road. We have recommendations for complete sidewalks and bike facilities on Rogie Road as well, and a recommendation to upgrade bike facilities and sidewalk on Baranda Road to a class 1 path, so completely separated from traffic and providing some safe space for students to walk and bike. And we also have recommendations for safe routes to schools corridors. These are the streets in front of each school and the main connections to each school. And the goal here is that when the city is implementing these projects, that they really think on a corridor level So not just focusing on one intersection or one section of sidewalk, but really focus on the entire corridor to provide safe routes to each school. And so I'm not going to go into each of the school recommendations individually, but here are some of the really common recommendations that come up for each of the school sites. We have lots of recommendations for curb extensions, which are extensions of the sidewalk at the intersection that serve to improve pedestrian safety by shortening the distance that people who are walking have to cross and making people more visible to drivers. You're not having to peek out behind a parked car while you're waiting to cross. It's very clear when people are trying to cross the street. We have recommendations for rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are pedestrian activated lights that are used at uncontrolled or mid-block crosswalks, and those also help to make pedestrians more visible to drivers. We have recommendations for safe routes to schools corridors, which I talked about. We have recommendations for raised crosswalks, which are like a combination of a speed hump and a crosswalk, so helping to slow down traffic and raise people who are walking up a few inches to make them more visible to drivers as well. We have recommendations for bike boulevards, which often include traffic calming. So these are bike priority streets. They often include signage and striping to let drivers know to expect people on bikes, as well as traffic calming to make sure that traffic speeds are low. And then we have recommendations for separated bikeways, which are also called cycle tracks. And these are bike lanes that are physically separated in some way from moving traffic. And these have been shown to really increase bike ridership. People feel safer and more comfortable. And they've also been shown to reduce collisions for people who are biking. So here is an example of the school recommendations maps. These are organized alphabetically by school in chapter 5 of the draft plan. So I'd love to have you all take a look at the recommendations maps for each school and share your comments. And a few things I wanted to highlight here are recommendations for curb extensions and high visibility crosswalks at the 2 main intersections near the school. So Santa Rita and Lamar, right in front of the school, and then Santa Rita and East Bolivar. And we also have a recommendation to conduct an always stop warrant analysis at Santa Rita and Bolivar. There are rules about when you can install stop signs, but the recommendation here is to analyze that and see whether a stop sign is warranted there. We have a recommendation for a bike boulevard with traffic calming on East Bolivar between Main Street and Van Buren. And an idea to consider widening the sidewalk on the south side of the street adjacent to the park to create a multi-use path. It's always nice to have that opportunity to increase the sidewalk and provide more safe space. And then another recommendation I wanted to highlight here is for the school to consider opening some of the back gates to campus. Santa Rita is unique in that there's 3 gates to campus that are currently closed. We know this is a really tough recommendation to do and that COVID has made it extra challenging. But around every school site, there's always a ton of traffic right in front of the school. And often the combination of parents in a rush to drop off their students and students walking and students biking leads to less than safe conditions. And so opening up one of those back gates provides an opportunity to split up that traffic and give students who are walking and biking a really safe access point to campus. Again, I know that's tough. I know that staffing is a challenge, but we have a recommendation for the school to consider that in the future. And so then the last category of recommendations are programmatic recommendations, and these are divided by the agency that would implement them. So there's recommendations that could be implemented by the Transportation Agency for Monterey County and the city and nonprofits and the health department. And there's also some recommendations that could be implemented by the school district. And some of these things are things that you're already doing. There's a recommendation to partner with the Transportation Agency and Monterey County and other partners to provide bicycle and pedestrian safety education at elementary schools, which is already in process now. We have some encouragement recommendations here. One is to adopt a district-wide policy of support for active transportation, just kind of putting a stake in the ground saying that walking and biking to school is important and has a lot of benefits for students and families, and thinking about ways to work towards improving and expanding bike and pedestrian trips in the future. We have a recommendation to provide an orientation for principals and school staff on all the different Safe Routes to Schools programs that are out there, and best practices around traffic management. You know, often I think principals don't expect that managing traffic in front of the school is going to be part of their job. And I always learn a lot during all of these audits and conversations with principals. A lot of them have great ideas. And I think just bringing principals together to share best practices can be really powerful, and helping to trade tips on how to manage the traffic every day. We have recommendations to promote events that encourage active transportation, such as Bike and Walk to School Day. And I wanted to flag that the Transportation Agency for Monterey County has a program to provide bike racks and skateboard racks and scooter racks to anyone that asked. So that's available for all of your school sites. And then finally, probably the toughest recommendation is that we always get requests for more crossing guards. We know that that's a huge challenge, that funding those positions and staffing those positions is a major challenge. And the goal here is, you know, we don't have all the answers here, but the recommendation is to continue the conversation with TAMC, with the city, and try and ensure that there is at least one crossing guard in place before and after school for each of the school sites. So, project evaluation. We went through the exercise of scoring all of the projects in the plan. And this is meant, I'm going to give some caveats here, because I'll share a high priority project list. This is not meant to be the order in which these projects are constructed. These are not necessarily the only projects that will be constructed. We're really trying to provide a tool that the city can use and that the Transportation Agency for Monterey County can use to match these projects to various grant funding sources. So these criteria are based on what the state is looking for when it awards funding for bike and pedestrian projects. And at the end of this project, the city will get a very long spreadsheet where they can sort and filter these projects based on these criteria and help match these projects to various grant funding sources. So just a caveat there. So here is our high priority project list. The Santa Rita district project that's on this list is second from the bottom there, and it's that project I talked about for Santa Rita Elementary to consider a bike boulevard with traffic calming between Main Street and Van Buren, and consider sidewalk widening on the south side of the street. Again, that's not necessarily, that doesn't mean that will be the only project that the city prioritizes. This is really meant as a tool and a starting place for the city and TAMC to make decisions going forward. So there is unfortunately not a huge pot of funding that the city has to construct all of these projects. So the city will continue to apply for grants to build these projects in the future. The city of Salinas has a really good track record in winning grant funding to construct Safe Routes to Schools projects and has brought in just under $8 million since 2017, specifically for Safe Routes to Schools. So this plan is really meant to help them stay competitive as they apply for funding. It really helps to show that you've gone through this process, that you have prioritized projects. And so this is a tool that the city can use to apply for funding in the future. There's also the opportunity to include some of these projects in maintenance projects. So as you're repaving a street, restriping a street, it's much easier and cheaper to improve crosswalks, improve bike facilities. And so that's something the city will be looking at as well. What can they fold into existing maintenance projects to get projects constructed more cheaply? So with that, our next steps on this plan are that it is live on our project website through October 23rd. We'll be working with principals to try and get the word out to parents and let them know that they have the opportunity to make comments. We would love to hear any feedback that you have tonight on anything that's missing from the recommendations list right now. And we hope to come back before you either at the end of this year or early next year with the final plan and request board adoption. So that concludes my presentation, and I welcome any comments you may have.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
Sure. My first question is how much does the city have allocated for this?
There's no dedicated pot for safe routes to schools. They allocate projects on an annual basis through the capital improvement program. So it's going to be a process from here, to apply for funds, to prioritize projects every year with our annual budget, and to build these projects into the maintenance plans that they already have going.
Okay, well, one of my initial comments, and I saw that it was addressed on there on Lamar and Boulevard, and I don't know how many accidents have happened on Lamar, and well, one of my first questions before I go into that is I saw that there's a rating schedule, right? So, I think the first one was safety, right? So how was that determined? Because one of my concerns is, as they've implemented some traffic calming studies, is I've seen the reports where they'll say there's 2 accidents for that year when I know there's been like 24. So how is that rating determined?
We looked at the number of collisions near each project location, and we do, no data source is perfect. So we use the statewide data source that is provided by police departments. And so some of the limitations there are that if a collision is not reported to law enforcement, it doesn't end up in the statewide database. So we're looking at bike and pedestrian collisions that are reported. We're counting the number of collisions within a certain time period and looking at collisions that are within a close proximity of the project location. And that's how we developed that safety score.
Okay, thank you. And on Lamar and Boulevard, I think it was less than 30 days ago, I talked to a gentleman who lives right there on the corner of Boulevard. And, I was just sharing that they just finished some speed bumps. And he was sharing with me that on the corner of, he lives on Boulevard. On the corner of Lamar, his wife was actually killed on that crosswalk, and his daughter suffered severe injuries. And that's when they had already installed the lights. So, one of my recommendations would be upgrade, extra, whatever you can do there, because I think even Jacob had a high school buddy on, was it that same intersection that was, severely injured? I mean, it's been accident after accident. I think last week there was an accident there. And Boulevard as well. I'm glad that you're looking at that area, and then the stop sign on Boulevard and by Santa Rita. I think those are really crucial areas. I am concerned that, like I said, I know you were kind of warning us about the project list, because we don't see the sidewalks and things like that. But I think that needs to be a big priority for me. And then, Mr. Patel was sharing the concerns of the residents in the Bolsa Knolls area. So I know you've done outreach to the local schools, and they've done a great job with a parent square. But could we make a request to you that maybe you can reach out to that specific neighborhood, because it is a very dangerous. I know you guys, I saw the corridors at you guys, but those specific residents have a lot of concerns. It's sad that their kids can't, even be outside because they're going 40 miles an hour down those. But I don't know how you would outreach. I know that specific group has social media, Facebook, Bolsonaro's that's very active, but I think every day they're expressing concern. So I think they're valuable stakeholders that should be considered in this process as well.
So part of the thing is this is live now, right? So potentially that's where they would submit the comments and stuff to be able to kind of input that information. Then.
I'm asking more like, just like they did outreach to the schools, if they could do outreach to that particular community. Because it's one thing to say, go look at a website, but it's another thing if they could talk to you and, hands-on, that kind of a thing. Thank you.
We do have a recommendation for a traffic calming plan for that neighborhood between Rogie and Penzance and San Juan Grade. The county didn't want to commit to, it's always tricky to pick which streets get speed bumps because then traffic moves to the other streets in the neighborhood. So the recommendation there is for the county to do a comprehensive traffic calming plan for that neighborhood, because they have heard a lot of those comments as well. Yeah.
And I was just going to add that I sent out this week to parents, and then our administrators are including the opportunities for feedback through that link as well, because we want to make sure that all of it's collected, not just in our meetings, but that it's making it to the source during any upcoming meetings that they have as well. I'm also, as I shared with you, working with Centro Binacional, who's having a series of parent workshops, and it's really focused around community engagement for our Indigenous families in that Santa Rita area who have been highly impacted by traffic specific issues. And so part of that meeting on October 6th will include supporting families in providing feedback. So families will be able to provide feedback on October 6th in that meeting, and then that group will be able to provide the feedback through that link as well.
Well, just one final comment and thought, and I'm not sure if this is within your purview or not, but I know it definitely affects how many students, for example, in our Santa Rita school. So the Brown Manor apartment, they only have one gate open, and incidentally, their gate access is actually welded shut, which is a big safety concern the city has not addressed yet. But you know, I think that would alleviate, you know, give two different, you know, routes instead of just for them coming from one particular area. But I think, just on another note, I also think the school district probably needs to push for the safety concerns for that apartment complex, access to exits. So, but that would be my comment too. That's an area of concern too.
Yeah, I can definitely flag that to the city. We have less control over private property owners, so I think probably coming from the school district would be more effective than. But I can certainly bring it back to the city.
Yeah,
and,
more voices is always better. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
My main concern is Rogie, the traffic nightmare, and sidewalks on San Juan, and efficient crosswalks getting across San Juan from Rogie. Any one of those streets, none of them have a decent crosswalk. Not a single one. Not a single one. You know, we have a lot of pedestrians and students crossing San Juan grade, and every day it's a nightmare. You know, and as far as traffic calming, I understand that, you know, but you know, and the other thing is the rectangular rapid flashing beacons. You know, they're very cost effective, and I'm surprised that isn't the first tool on, you know, in the toolbox that's implemented. You know, that visual reminder of people wanting to cross, and that thing is blinking. I know it's had tremendous effect right across on Everett Alvarez High School. You know, what was it, Constitution? You know, and there was major drama there. And finally, they just put a simple rectangular rapid flashing, and that made a whole world of difference. You know, so for me, it's at every school site, whether it be New Republic or Santa Rita, you know, we need more of those implemented. And it's relatively, you know, inexpensive compared to all the other solutions you're talking about. And last but not least, in terms of funding, this city has done probably one of the worst jobs of funding. They just spent $10-20 million on Old Town Salinas, redoing it. After 30 years ago, they just spent millions before redoing it into a one-way, and now they went back to a two-way. This is just piss poor management and expending public funds when they could be wisely spent elsewhere protecting our residents and students. And the idea that we don't have a sidewalk on San Juan grade, it's inexcusable. That should be the first priority before you fix a single sidewalk anywhere in Salinas. You should provide sidewalk so students could walk down the street without having to walk sideways down a hill. You know, to me, it's incomprehensible. You know, and I blame city planning, and I blame the city leaders for not looking into that and fixing that long time ago. You know, so these are some of the concerns I have that you might want to put in that report. Thank you. And by the way, I apologize for my tone, but, you know, it's been years in the making, you know, and these are just simple solutions and they're not being implemented. And yet, you know, we're having multi-million-dollar spent on redoing one street over and over and over again, you know, without benefiting the rest of the city's safety. You know, so I think that Old Town Salinas is a boondoggle, and that those millions could have been better spent providing sidewalks for our students, for traffic calming measures, for rectangular rapid flashing. You know, I think the safety of the city should be paramount first before business development or projected business development, which I haven't seen in 40 years. Promises made have not been promises kept. Thank you.
I would say that the Bolsa Knolls neighborhood is in an especially tough situation because the city limit ends at Russell. Russell is a combination of city and county, and so San Juan grade past Russell Road is county, and that is even more challenging than competing with different city priorities is competing, as I'm sure you all know, competing with priorities throughout the entire county. So this is definitely one step to elevate this project within the county. There's definitely a need. And let me ask a question about the crossings of San Juan Grade. So we have recommendations for improvements at Penzance and Cornwall and Rogie. And those are the three main cross streets. Does that capture
Yeah, pretty
those
much.
three intersections? Or
I mean, they have, I think, 3 or 4 crosswalks that, I mean, they're dangerous. They're dangerous. You know, people flying by 45, 50, 60 miles an hour, you know, and not even a light, not even a simple flashing light, nothing. And at night, oh, God help you. At night, God help you. You know, and with with the daylight savings time, some of our students, you know, staying after hours, etc. And in the rain, good God. You know, very low visibility. So thank you for, those crosswalks should be priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for myself, for everybody in the public that's watching online, we're gonna be posting it on our websites. It's super important that you stay engaged. A lot of times I do see people that, I mean, obviously we complain about it, but if the comments aren't put in some type of organized fashion, it doesn't get included in the plan. And then 5-10 years later, we're kind of seeing the results of it. So it's super important to click on the link, make your comments. If you live in the communities, it's super important for you to stay engaged. And I know, obviously, this is a big wish list, but it's a good important step. And I do think that you're right. If there is a plan, then it's easier to apply for grants and for funding now that we have something to kind of to go off. So just want to keep repeating it. Just look online for the report, make comments before the final report goes out, and just stay engaged. So thank you.
I did have one concern, and that was the timeline. You said 2020. What end of time was 220? Was that near the end of 220 where observations were made and input was taken? Because to me, that was a very weird time, you know, due to COVID, and there wasn't much traffic. There wasn't a lot of complaints going on. You know, I don't think people were quite vested in being involved and expressing their concerns because it probably wasn't realized. I think now you might have a much different perspective, you know, and you know, you mentioned that, you know, you weren't able to, or the staff wasn't able to physically go out there at some point, you know, and see it, and took recommendations from teachers and principals, etc. But I think maybe a review, or, you know, looking at it again in current day format, you know, with the traffic congestion, with the full schools, you know, I think you might get a little different perspective. Thank you.
It was definitely not ideal circumstances. We did visit each school site and had a meeting with principals and took a walk around the school campus.
Recently?
This was in the fall of 2020 for Santa Rita schools. Yeah.
And I think what they would probably give is just feedback on past years more than the current year is kind of what happened. Yeah.
Well,
and I think this is kind of where I think why she's here again, to kind of put it out there in the purview. It's like, hey, if you're watching, if you're listening, if you're putting it on social media, you know, this is your last chance to put it in there. Okay. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on to 8.2, approval, letter of approval for AB 1200, public disclosure for non-use certificated management.
That is my item. The 8.2 and 8.3 are the letter approvals we got from Monterey County Office of Education. This is in regards to the AB 1200, the public disclosure that was board approved during the last board meeting. So just informational item, the county review, they agree with the numbers and they approve those recommendations.
Okay,
That's
great.
pretty much it.
Okay, any questions or comments? If not, can I get a motion to approve? That's an informational, sorry.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, another informational item, 8.3, letter of approval for AB 1200, public disclosure for non-union classified management.
So it's just the same thing, but this one was for classified. The first one was for certificated. It is the letter from Monterey County approving the AB 1200, the public disclosures.
Okay, any questions on that item? Thank you. 8.4, approval of 2021-2022 Center Union District unaudited actuals.
So that's the presentation I'm gonna have for you tonight. So as you know, we finally closed the books, and I'm gonna go as quickly as I can. As you know, my report for the United to the Actuals is probably about 300 pages, and every year they just keep adding more information to it. So I will try my best. I do want to share with you that the biggest challenge for this closing year, we had a lot of challenges, but and you're gonna see that reflected in the budget. But the biggest challenge was not being able to hire the people to do the work. So we got some of the one-time funds to be able to implement all these after-school programs and tutoring and extra PD, and we had great ideas. We worked with all of the directors to plan on these expenditures, but the biggest challenge was getting the people to do the work. Just the hiring, short staff, and not being able to get the people to actually implement the plans. So as I just mentioned this, you're gonna see that in our budget and how that impacted. And I'm gonna go with the original, the Fund 01. So what I usually like to do is compare the prior year, last 2020, 2021 with the closing year and go over the biggest differences. So just something that I want you to look here. The biggest change was revenue. We did got more revenue. This was due to the one-time funds due to COVID. The LCFF came in higher because we did have a waiver. We were funded on 1920, and that's why our LCFF was more. Something that I want to highlight as well is that our certificated classified and benefits increased by about $3 million. And as you can see, this is ongoing expense. And I just want to highlight that it's also matching to our LCFF that also increased with our ongoing funding. Everything else was one-time expenditures due to COVID. And one of the biggest expenditures that we had, it was for special ed services. As you know, the number of students are increasing, not only in Santa Rita, statewide, and also expenses are increasing as well. Not only that, but also our students that we have through Monterey County Office of Education, through the Build Back, it did increase a little bit more over than $500,000. So as you know, this is going on not only in Santa Rita, but all over the state. So as I move on, I want to now compare our actuals versus the last budget that was board adopted. So comparing the last budget versus of actuals, I do want to highlight again one of the most significant changes. As you can see in the revenue, we had some of the grants that we got after June 30th. So even though that we closed the books in September, we got the actual cash after June 30th. So that's why it was not included on the last budget, as my last budget was reflected with the May numbers, with the May revised budget. So that's why that revenue that we got at the end of the year was not reflected in the budget. And part of that revenue was the Chromebook reimbursement grant that we applied. We applied for it. We submitted all the paperwork. I worked very close with Donna on this grant. And they told us that we were going to get the grant, but we didn't know when we were going to get the cash. So since we didn't have a date, we were not able to book the revenue in the budget. And then actually the week that we were closing the books, that's when we received the cash. So we were able to book that in as of last year because our expenses for the Chromebook happened the closing year. So we wanted to match our revenues with our expenses. Another grant that we received that we didn't know we were going to get it. It's a grant from the Department of Health, the medical grant, and it was based on reimbursement. I worked with this with Becky. She sent me the link. It was one of those grants that we usually normally don't get every year. It was for $140,000 and also came in after we closed, after June 30th. So we were able to move that grant to the closing year. Another one-time grant that we got, and Melissa helped out with this one. It was also due to COVID. We also got the cash after June 30th, and it was for $220,000, and it was also for COVID. It was from the Department of Public Health as well, and it was COVID related. So we got the grant, and we were still able to book it into the closing year since we were working on closing the books during that week. Our LCFF came in a little bit higher with the final numbers on attendance and enrollment, about $21,000 higher. And another grant that we got, and we didn't know that it was going to come in higher, it's a grant that we get. It's called the AB 602. And that one, it's for special ed. It comes through Monterey County Office of Education. So we got the final letter in September as well. It came in about $386,000 higher. So when you put all of these grants together, it come up to close to $2 million, and that's why the revenue was off. We also had this grant. It was the ELOP. So we have the ELO grant, and we got the ELOP. This was for after school program. It was for $1.3 million. And we thought at the beginning of the year that it was going to be based on reimbursement. However, the state said, no, you keep it and you're going to implement it as you can. Right now, there's not an expiration date for it. That's $1.3 million that we were not able to spend because of lack of, hiring people, not having teachers, and not having people to implement all these after school programs. And we still have it there. It is part of our ending fund balance. We're going to keep it there until the district's able to get the people to do the work. So with that being said, some of the expenditures, again, some of the savings that we have, it's for contract services. A lot of it has to do with, special ed, legal expenses, and contracts that we had they overlap 2 years. So as we didn't have the expense the closing year, some of those expenses moved to the new year. So that's why you see a savings in there. Very slightly off on the benefits and salaries, because again, we had extra hours that we budget for the one-time funds. But again, we didn't have the people to implement those services. So we end up having a savings at the end of the year. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide.
Go back to the.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always interesting on the budgets, because if you get grants or budgets for 1 year, like for example, showing the revenues for $3 million, it's not very lot. $3 million, it could be a one-time grant that we received this year, but we're not going to spend it until the following year.
Right.
So they're much better. So then potentially for that year, we have a surplus of $3 million, and the following year, we're going to have a deficit of $3 million the way our books look.
Right. That's correct. So for example, that $1.3 million, since we didn't spend it that closing year, it is now part of our ending fund balance. It is restricted for that specific purpose. I would say about 80% of the one-time grants are based on reimbursement, meaning that if we don't spend the money that year, we don't get to recognize that as a revenue.
Okay.
And then about 20%, like the ELOP that we didn't spend, is you get it. You just get the money. If you don't spend it, it's just saved right there in your ending fund balance. Sure. So there's different rules for the accounting.
Okay, that makes sense. So the part of it is you don't put it as revenue unless you spend it, because there's a reimbursement that's kind of involved, even though there's a grant in place for that specific.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
I have a comment on that as well.
Okay.
I appreciate the way, budget are numbers that we put in that we don't necessarily are liable for until we get the actuals coming in. The budgets are artificial to a certain extent. And the idea that you consistently do it in a conservative nature, and you only do it with the known data, the known inputs, the known generators of income and expenses, without the unknown firm data coming into the picture, I think it provides us with a much better, reliable source of information to make our decisions from. So I appreciate that. Budgets are artificial. We can put whatever we want in a budget. But as a decision maker, I would rather, always be on the conservative side, and don't ever include numbers in there that might never come true. Even though there's 90% chance or 95% chance, I'd rather them not be in there at all, because if we rely on it and they don't come through, so budgets, to me, the budget numbers rather than actuals, we have to be very conservative, and I appreciate not including artificial numbers in there that might not come true. both as an income or as an expense.
Yeah, I have one more question. On the total expenses, you had mentioned part of that is just not being able to hire the people, right? So essentially, if we would have been fully staffed, the number would probably been closer to the 50 million.
That's right. And again, some of the contract services that we budget. Services
Oh, I think it went out. Okay, 1 second.
that overlap 2 years, especially for.
Oh, got it.
So settlements that were initiated last year, but they were not finalized or they're overlapped 2 years.
Oh, got it.
So those expenses roll over to the new year.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to point out that, as you can see, if we would have closed the books early, or we wouldn't have got those one-time funds due to COVID, that extra $2.9 million, just for rounding purposes, let's just say is $3 million. If you look at the bottom on our net increase or positive number is about 3.5. So when you take your revenue minus your expenses and the transfer out, we end up at $3.5 million. But if we didn't have that 2.9, we would have ended up with only about $500,000. So what I want you to see is that we're getting very close to balancing our budget. And also, we're also being very careful about having to spend all of those one-time funds for one-time expenses and or ongoing funding for ongoing expenses. So trying to balance the budget. And I just want you to see that even though the budget was off, we're pretty close there from our revenues to our expenses. And we're very, very careful on that.
Another question just trying me. Can you remind me what the transfer out is for again?
Yes, so the $1.6 million, it's $1.5 million for Fund 35 to finalize the Gavilan View kitchen project, and then $150,000 to finalize expenditures for the portables at La Jolla.
Okay, so part of it also will depend on whatever facility projects are kind of happening for that funds out.
Right, and that was every time we move cash from Fund 01, we do have a board resolution that was on the last board meeting. It has been budgeted. As you can see, my last budget, it was there. It has been budgeted, but now that we're closing the books, now we're actually taking the cash and moving it from one fund to another one.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to look at, especially for the public, is like, so that 1.65, I mean, we budgeted for it, but that also depends from year to year what projects we have going on that are going to get paid out that specific year, kind of also shows that we balance or we didn't balance because of what's kind of happening.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And if those projects get board approved, then we go ahead and include them in the budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So just for purposes of the ending fund balance, as you know, we do have the restricted fund balance and the unrestricted ending fund balance. Everything that is restricted, it's restricted. You can only use it for that specific purposes. And then we have our unrestricted ending fund balance. So as you can see, we do have a board resolution about that, and everything is included in here. The only amount that is not included, it was the $1 million that was gonna get paid to the employees for the $2,000 bonus, because that was already paid out. Everything else is in a line with the board resolution. We also are required per ed code to make sure that everything that we don't spend in the LCAP dollars stay restricted for LCAP purposes. The reason why we had a savings on the LCAP dollars for about $1 million this year, it's because we got that Chromebook grant. It was about $840,000, and we had to use LCAP funds to purchase those Chromebooks. So as we got the grant after June 30th, we moved those expenses out of the LCAP, and that created a savings for the closing year. And then everything else is pretty much assigned based on the priorities for the district. As you can see, we have increases on STIRS and PERS, increases on special ed very heavily, and or OPEB future expenses, and also expenses on operating expenditures. As you know, everything is going up with inflation, contract services for accounting system, for frontline, just for every contract services, water, electricity, everything is just going up. So we need to be ready for those increases as well. So I'm glad we had the presentation today about the ASB because you heard a lot of it. And I'm not gonna go deeply on this, but we got more revenue that we had projected, which is good news. They did a lot of fundraising and we got more donations than usual. So you can see it reflected here in the report. And as you know, they use this for trips and arts and crafts that they use in special events. And I know you being part of these special events, so I'm not going to go ahead and give a lot of detail. The good news is that we have a positive ending fund balance, so they still have funds there. And we did spend less than we received, so we have that funds for activities. This is the Child Development Fund. This closing year was also due to COVID based on reimbursement. So even though we budgeted based on our contract, we were not able to spend all the funds. Again, we didn't have, our classes were small. We didn't have a lot of students. We have some vacancies, and we spent as much as we could based on the reimbursement, but we didn't spend it all. We also got a federal grant for $16,000, $16,200, and that was part of the revenue as well. The little 19.85, it's just interest. But overall, we still have a positive ending fund balance. We do have an audit adjustment. That's why you see a negative number there. It is reflected on the TRC of this report. This year, I don't know if I mentioned to you before, but we moved to a new system with the SACs that now it's web-based. But the closing year, we have to do it on the old system. So it's just not recognizing the audit finding. So that's, I have an exception there that I'm gonna go over with that. But overall, we still have an ending fund balance, and just those differences that we have there because of, it is based on a reimbursement grant.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
So since we don't have the preschool anymore, what happens to those funds?
Yes, so the funds are gonna come still to us, right? And then we're gonna transfer those funds to MCOE, I believe.
So, well, partially with that, because it's a reimbursement grant, we don't really have that money. So it's only, it's basically money that's left in the grant that we didn't utilize. So it's just money that we're not going to get in, not necessarily money that we ever had, because the preschool is a reimbursement grant.
Oh, I'm sorry, for the ending fund balance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, so part of the ending fund balance was, it's unrestricted. It was not part of the contract for the reimbursement. So everything that we've been getting from the state for the preschool has been spent out. However, we do have a positive ending fund balance that's unrestricted. And that's just been accumulating over years, because before COVID, we used to pay the fees for the parent fees. So little by little, it was just accumulating some unrestricted funds, and we use it as a best practice. We didn't want to put it back in the general fund, because when you don't have cash in the fund, you get charged negative interest. So it's always good to have some ending fund balance in there, so you don't get charged for having the funds there.
And so what Rosa was saying is that it's now, even though the MCOE is running the preschool, all the fiscal, they basically bill to us. We pay that out of that. So it stays in that spot. It stays with us. They're sub-granting the contract, meaning that the contract is still under us.
But the ending fund balance is money built up.
Ours.
It's ours.
It's Sanaritas.
Okay,
So they could theoretically have transferred to the general fund, but they said it's better practice to leave money in there so we don't get.
I guess how much money do we have to live in there? The reason I'm asking is because, at our facilities committee meeting the other day, and I know that it doesn't maybe generally work this way, or attending the music program, they had these talks that long time ago there was money taken from, PE or music, and, it just disappeared and never went back. And so, I'm thinking, well, if we're able to keep money in this fund, but it's unrestricted, maybe not specifically with those things, but where else can that money be allocated? Would be my question.
Okay. Yeah, so it's, right now it's unrestricted, it's being kept there. So it would be a conversation to see if we want to move the funds out of there to the general fund, because they are unrestricted. The only consequence that I see with that is that we will get charged negative interest because we don't get the cash. It's just not having the cash, and we would have to pay Sometimes it's up to like $12,000 per year that we have to pay. So it is quite an amount. So my preference would be to keep it there for emergencies, just like we had this audit adjustment. We had enough cash in there and we just use it. So we use it kind of like a reserve, small reserve for emergencies and to make sure we don't get charged for negative interest.
I think another option would be maybe having, what I kind of hear a little bit is having some type of board workshop on funding, how it gets allocated for music and that kind of stuff. I think might be more, Yeah, I think that's kind of more what you're looking, because I think the 85,000, if there's other funds in the general fund that could be used for that, that'd probably be the first question to ask. And if there isn't, then I guess that's where we can see this conversation about the 85, right?
Right, and we are getting a grant this year for music and art. So we're just waiting for additional information from the state.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying is like if we have money sitting there, why not use it for something that's going to benefit the students and stuff? Is kind of
Rosa, can I clarify that question real quick though? So that funding, that grant that we receive for the 1.5 million is dedicated just to that state preschool.
Correct.
So can you clarify, because I think there's some confusion. So that additional funding that's left that we can utilize that's unrestricted is outside of that 1.5 million?
Yes.
So can you clarify?
Correct.
I think that's the...
Yes. So the grant, like I mentioned, it is based on reimbursement. So for example, we did receive $1.4 million because that's what we spent. And we submit all of our expenditures and that's what we get. The reason why it doesn't look like it was zero out, it was because we had that audit adjustment, which is $34,000, but we also have this one-time grant from the federal revenue. So that's the main reason why my revenue is not matching my expenses.
okay. And that 85, just to kind of follow up on the question, he says, is that kind of close to the minimum amount that needs to be put in there so we don't get charged negative interest, or is it
So it depends because the state does send out the money, but they don't send it out at the same time all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it depends. Sometimes we get $500,000. Sometimes we get 100,000. It's just different.
so it's like a cushion you have in there in a way, as far as the money kind of waiting for the reimbursement?
Yes.
I think is what it is. That kind of makes sense.
Exactly. Right.
Huh? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. It's kind of because you might not get the reimbursement right away, and that's where you would use some of the 85,000
cash.
potentially in there while you're
Right.
waiting for the reimbursement checks to kind of come in.
You're basically paying ahead, right? So you're paying ahead, so you have to have a cushion so that you have the money available to pay ahead to wait for that money to come.
And it kind of reminds me, I know, I think it was like a year or two back where certain districts had to potentially get loans to do payroll, I think, because of the funds not being there as far as you actually receiving the cash, even though you kind of had budgeted in there. So that kind of allows something similar, but with
It
the
works
reimbursement.
similar. Yeah, it's always best to have
Cash, yeah.
cash in there, and especially to avoid fees as well, because you get fees if you don't have money
Fair
there
enough.
and you just have the
Okay.
fund opened.
That makes sense. And that helps to clarify quite a bit, just talking through it a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll go ahead and move to the next fund. This is the cafeteria fund. And the good news for this one is that we also got a grant. Just when we were closing the books, it was a grant for equipment for $81,000. But we also got more participation on the last 3 months. So we were able to get more revenue. And as you can see, we did have some savings on classified benefits and books and supplies. Everything else is just some savings overall during the year. And again, we probably had extra hours that we were planning to spend that we didn't spend, but we always like to budget just to be ready when we need those. So that's why the reason why we got some of the savings. Overall, they did end up with a surplus of $679 to $86. So that's really, really good news. And again, this was just due because we got those one-time grant funds and the savings for this year. Desist or defer revenue fund, and this is straight up for the rekeying of the district. So there's not a lot of changes there. I believe that project is almost completed, if not completed, but this specific year, we focused all of our expenses to that specific grant. And you can see right there, we still have an ending fund balance of 863,920. So we're still doing good on that. And we're gonna move forward with the next project in part of the 5-year plan that we had. This is developer fees, not a lot of changes. We just got slightly more money on, any housing developments that are going on in the area. They do have to pay developers fees, so that's where the money comes from. Slightly just increased by 4,490. And this is our Fund 35. So this is the grant where we are paying 3 different projects in there. So we have the project for the boardroom, and we also have the Gavilan View kitchen renovation and the Sobrana construction expenses, or as of the closing year, preliminary expenses. So that's pretty much what contributes to the $3.1 million for the closing year. Any questions for that? Move on. This is our capital outlay. This is the fund where we managed La Jolla portables. The project is completely done, and I know Victor mentioned that he had already completed everything, submitted to the state. We did the transfer in, as you can see, for 150. And we still have a little bit of ending fund balance. We're waiting to see if we have any last minute invoices that might be pending out there. But again, we like to keep a little bit of money in there to avoid the negative interest fees as well. Just overall, the forms, you're very familiar with it. Fund 51, it's our bond interest and redemption fund. This is something that we don't keep here on our financials. It is part of the county treasury, and we are required to provide this information as part of our reports. The main revenues come from property taxes, and we have our Form A, which it states how much ADA we got funded for. That's the number right there. Form assets, the list of buildings, land, and equipment. Form CEA, you're pretty familiar with it. That's where we are required to maintain expenditures on the classroom, including teachers and materials and supplies at 60%. We are at 61.9%, so we were able to meet the minimum requirement. Then Form DEB, which is listed there. Also, our MOE was met, which is also really important. It does do on the background calculation of how much money we're spending on every student based on an ADA, and we are in compliance with it. Also, percentages for indirect costs, and Form SIAA lists all the interfund transfer, which, as you can see, that was the $1.6 million transfer from the general fund to Fund 35 and Fund 40. And then the last 2 forms is for the special education maintenance of effort, and that was met as well. That does also a background calculation to make sure we are spending enough funds on our special ed students, and we are in compliance. Something that I didn't include here, but you are gonna see it on my TRC, is that explanation that I have to put. Like I mentioned, there is a TRC saying that I have an audit adjustment in Fund 12. That was from the prior year because on the preschool, they ordered supplies, they got back order, so they didn't get on time in June. They got it in July, and because they received the items in July based on the accounting principles, that expenditure belongs to the new year. So we have to move the expenditure from one year to another one. We were not aware of it, but the auditor did a visit on the preschool and was aware that the items got there in July. So we have to move that expenditure out. So you're gonna see that explanation in the TRC. This is the GAN limit, and I have it also. We have to do a board resolution. This is also a form in the report that it does a calculation to make sure that the district, based on the ADA and the population that we have, we're not overspending so much based on the revenue that we get. We are in compliance with that. And the form, there is a section where it says if we were able to meet the GAN limit, if we are in compliance. So that's coming up on my next item. We do have to do a board resolution on it. And the main purpose is just to prevent government waste of funds. And that's about it for tonight. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, first, Mayor, just want to say thank you. Always appreciate the handout. How kind of helps guide a little bit, and thank you for walking us through it. Questions or comments from the board?
Same thing. That was a great presentation. Thank you. It was a lot, but it was all very, very much needed. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for the clarifications as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Once again, yeah, just like everyone else is saying, thank you for the presentation. You know, the one term that's really bittersweet for me is whenever I hear one-time grant, one-time funds. You know, it's great while you have it, but a nightmare when you depend on it. And so I think this board is doing a really good job of making sure we balance the two. You know, yes, we have the funds now. Yes, we can expedite them on long-term benefits. However, we can never become dependent on it to the point where we have to make major cuts in the future. So once again, I constantly stress the conservative nature of what I would like to see in terms of budgets. And I'm seeing that come to fruition year after year with this board. So I'm very appreciative of that. But once again, that term, one-time money, one-time grants, you know, I love to hear it, but I never want to get dependent on it. Especially with the future not looking so bright with the oncoming recession and interest rates going up and etc., you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, I always worry about the future. And so thank you for your presentation. And I'm really thankful for this board who consistently looks at the long-term conservative nature rather than just the short-term gains.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
Okay, second, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to 8.5, approval of resolution number 22.09.26 regarding the Proposition 4 GAN amendment for the 2021-2022 and projected 2022-2023 fiscal year that you just went over.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 8.6, approval of change order number 3 for the Gavilan View Middle School project. Victor.
Is that Victor?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. So I'm just happy to say that the Gavilan View change renovation and expansion is now complete 100%. I'm sure Chuck is probably happy. But anyways, so basically what we do at the very end is we hash out with the contractors, subcontractors, and everybody and say, okay, are you sure we don't owe you anything? And of course, there's minor items, saying minor adjustments of what we owe. And there was a credit. There's some fiber optic that we ran into the district office. There's a couple of items, and it totals out to about $4,500. And our grand total for the percentage of change was 7.59, which 10% of that is allowable by the public contract code. So we're budgeted, we're good, and we're complete.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Oh, wholeheartedly. Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was going to just make a comment. That maybe we can get some memorial buttons. I survived the Gavilan View kitchen remodel for some of the staff.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen any major remodel that doesn't, you know, have some adjustment necessary. So the fact that it was very minor, I appreciate the planning and resiliency of getting it done at budget with minimal cost of adjustments.
Okay, 9.1, approval of new full-time computer technician position.
Are you going to hire me finally? I'm getting a job.
Do you want a job?
Hiring.
I could use a hand.
So an analysis of the workload has resulted in identifying a need for an additional computer technician to work alongside Robert and Sam. Yay. We currently have these two gentlemen as our computer technicians and one IT specialist. So the third one will allow for work orders and projects to be completed in a more timely and efficient manner.
Okay, questions or comments from the board?
Oh, You know, when technology goes down, everything goes down. So for me, this is a major yes. So motion to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Oh, wholeheartedly. Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, help's on the way. Okay. 9.2 approval of a side letter agreement between SRTA and the district to add spring coaching stipends for boys volleyball.
Thank you. The middle school athletics directors met this month. They meet collaboratively with the high school district because they play their sports together, and have decided to add boys volleyball to our spring athletics calendar for this school year. Since in our negotiations with SRTA, we added stipends to the contract. It's now a negotiated item, and so we met, Heather and I, to do this side letter of agreement to add this coaching stipend.
Can I interject first? I really want to highlight the advocacy work that our Gavilan View Athletic Director, Jake Flores, put in for this over time. Really proud of him and his hard work. And for our elementary sports teams, you know, pre-COVID, we did have our volleyball season where he introduced 4th and 5th grade co-ed volleyball with the hopes that one day we would have boys volleyball. And so it's come to fruition. I just really wanted to highlight Jake Flores' work on this.
Yeah. Just a quick comment. Yeah. I'm thankful for the addition. I think my boys mentioned they're going to join that. And just observation, and I'll reach out to Jake myself as well. But, you know, since our schools end at 5th grade, you know, and so some 6th grade sports are, you know, traditionally elementary school. So, you know, as he continues to develop his program, I was just thinking a lot of schools have 6th grade flag football as well. And so, you know, as he's, you know, in his plan, but I think he's doing a great job.
I concur. I'm a strong advocate of additional sports, you know, and various levels. I think dollar for dollar, the stipend amounts is minimal, but the outcomes and the positive outreach it has and the effects on our students and student body, phenomenal. So I would strongly encourage even more, you know, if we can diversify, and as long as they're attending, as long as they're participating, there's less drama out there. You know, for dollar, it's a great investment. So thank you.
Motion to approve.
Okay, person. Second, please.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano.
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 10.1, approval of MCBH general education contract.
Perfect. So this is a contract that we've had this last school year, and we're looking to renew that. And this is Monterey County Behavioral Health serving our gen ed population.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
So motion.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano.
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 10.2, approval of Easter Seals certified nurse assistant contract.
Perfect. So this contract's for a CNA, or a certified nurse assistant, to support one of our students with an orthopedic impairment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano.
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
I think the printout after 10.2, do you have that? I think mine didn't print out at the very... Yeah, 10.3. Okay, approval of the Goodfellow therapy contract.
Perfect. So you may recognize this contract. I brought this to the board back in June. But this is an amendment to that contract, adding an additional SLP, or speech therapist, as well as 2 paraprofessional speech. They support the speech therapy, so they help facilitate the virtual pieces.
Thank you, Melanie. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Thank you for, you know, being responsive to our students' needs. I think you brought the most positions. And,
oh, yay.
you know, just thinking back about Rosa's, you know, control government, you know, spending, but the reality is these are much needed things. So, you know, with that, I'd motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval.
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, item 13.1, approval of CSBA manual maintenance, September 2022.
Thank you. So this is one of our quarterly board policy updates, and the vast majority of this round of policy updates has to do with implementation of new law, new legislature, slightly new clarifying language and things. There were a couple of items where we needed to choose an option, and so the suggested option to our board policy committee members was to maintain the option that our current policy matches.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, 13.2 is approval of reinstatement of board bylaw 9250 in a special open enrollment window of September 25th through October 25th, 2022.
Thank you. At our last meeting, we clarified some language in our board bylaw 9250, and this is just reinstating that policy and opening an enrollment window for our trustees.
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Since there could be new trustees in December, will they not qualify, or will they be?
They will qualify. They would be treated like a new employee joining your unit.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval,
Aye.
Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye, Captain.
Ms. Alvariano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, 13.3 informational item, facilities committee update.
Okay, that is mine. Thank you again. I just want to kind of focus on what we talked about, and I'll try to make it short. But basically, the focus was our discussion with the facilities committee on our 5-year plan. Basically, with the Attorney General's mandated and the enforcement of non-piggyback contracts, as I mentioned to you when we first looked at the delivery method of the 5-year contract or 5-year plan, was to create a district piggyback. So our own piggyback that, other entities in the state could actually purchase through a vendor, whoever was awarded. So basically the focus for us was to secure pricing and to relieve the escalation portion of it. Unfortunately, right now, with our 5-year plan, phase 1, which is this year and starting construction during the summer, it kind of puts a kibosh on what we're doing. Unfortunately, the recommendation from legal counsel is to wait and to see what the true intent of the Attorney General is going to be on that. And the reason for that is if we don't wait and we proceed with what we were planning to do initially, is that we could jeopardize our $12 million of modernization eligibility through the state. So just to remind you, early on we did the modernization eligibility, and it was roughly about $12 million. With 4 schools being able to capitalize on some of that funding. 2 of the schools, meaning La Jolla and Gavilan View, would have the most dollar of that. So with phase 1, Gavilan View is just going to be put on hold until we get a determination from the Attorney General. Other than that, we're still going to go with John Gutierrez, the changing rooms and stuff like that, solely because, as Rosa said, that we have different pots of funds that we're allocated to some of these projects. So basically, we have several pots of funds: developer fees, we have general fund, we have the bond program. Hopefully, it passes, and then we also have the modernization eligibility program. So John Gutierrez is, I think, is still on board solely because that is being paid through our general fund. Gavilan View, however, is mostly the modernization portion of it, which we want to put a hold until we can actually go from there. The other projects is McKinnon. As a matter of fact, Mr. Patel we're looking at doing 2 shade structures at McKinnon and 2 shade structures at New Republic for this next summer. So other than that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
You just said you're the man. So he's trying to-
Okay. So with that, the facilities committee concluded that, we should wait until we get the determination in writing from the Attorney General. And I think there's a lot of questions that he needs to answer and how we can deliver and if we can, continue using the piggyback contracts. So with that, basically, if you have any questions, that's all I have.
Grant. So does that mean, like, I know there was a couple targets or piggyback contracts we were looking at using, correct? Is there a certain timeline that we had to jump on board to be able to use them, and now because of this delay, like, it's out now, or how's that?
Yeah, well, basically what we need to do is we need to put the piggyback contract out on the street as a competitive bid. So that usually takes about 3 months. Unfortunately, we've missed that. So because of the enforcing of the non-use, but once we pick it up, we can, as I presented it to the facilities committee, the area where we're doing the first round of portables at Gavilan View is non-use area. So we could actually work around it. So what if we went out with piggyback contracts during the summer and we awarded in August, we could still do that contract and we could still do the construction and work with the site because it's basically on an area that's not really being used right now. No, they're not expired. It's just that we cannot use state funding to utilize the piggyback contract. So basically, it's jeopardizing our ability to recoup that money from the eligibility for the modernization. And right now, the state is giving us a 60% while we contribute 40%. Well, then that would mean if we use the piggyback contract right at this point in time, then we would have to ante up that 60% too, solely because right now the Attorney General won't let the state fund any piggyback contracts.
Stop for that opinion. So if we were to move forward on a P-Bank, the state might say, well, can't get the 60% then. Okay.
That's correct.
Move forward on a piggyback as long as it's a project that we're funding and we're not that matching state funding for modernization. So an example would be we've set aside some money for the changing room project at John Gutierrez Middle School because that will be like a modular building that we'll put down. If we were to able to put out the bid on the street and get a piggyback for such a building, because we're paying for that and not reliant on that state matching fund, we are allowed to do that piggyback.
Okay. And I guess the reason I asked this a little bit is to understand, and obviously we're looking at our budget and stuff, is let's say we wanted to move forward on a piggyback contract now and we would pay for it, not that we have the money, but just putting it out there. Is there any cost savings compared to so let's say, for example, we spend $1 million in portables if we do it now, right? But we say no, we don't want to do it now because we want to get the 60% match, but then later on it costs us or 40% more. I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, as I guess if we wait 3 months or 4 months or whatever the case is, it'll be putting out to bid what the new prices are, right? Not what the piggybacks we're looking at.
That is correct. I mean, basically by putting it out now, I mean, we're guaranteeing today's price, not, 4 months.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And so what was I mean, you might not have top of your head, but what was the cost of those portables that we were looking at initially with the
Well, initially, I think we were looking at $145,000 a piece, and with the escalation, if we do it as per the the Attorney General's recommendation is putting it out to bid, we would any contractor could actually bid on this project, and we're going to be paying from 30 to 50% more. competitive bid. Yeah. Yeah. Off the top of my head, I think there's 34 on the 5 year. Thank you.
Twelfth, 2022. 14.2 suggested future board items from the board first, and then I'll make my comments. No, I think one thing that the board kind of wanted to see, and doesn't have to be immediately, but kind of a little bit of a board workshop, I guess, on how funds are being allocated. Because kind of what I hear from Mr. Patel and Mr. Sandoval is kind of seeing if there's room, or if like the arts and music grant that we're looking to get potentially, I guess, kind of what are the timelines of that, and if there's funds available, like if there's certain projects that the board feels are a priority and they want to kind of allocate for that,
Not necessarily huge cost items, but just, some availability of determining certain programs at each site, whether it be music, art, field trips, whatever it may be, a discretionary amount, for each site that we could look at and see what each site needs and possibly fund it.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for everybody's patience at 8:20. If I can get a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Aye. Or aye. Aye.
Mr. Andrew Sandoval, Mr. Neil Patel,
Aye.
Ms. Salva Arellano,
Aye.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, have a nice evening, everyone.